Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive with us.
Hi.
Today, we're going to be looking at
Hi.
one of the most incredible transformations
Yeah,
in American history.
it really is.
So think back to the 1930s.
Right.
America's trying to get out of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And really, for the most part, hesitant to get involved in any global affairs.
Mm-hmm.
But just a decade later,
Oh, yeah.
that same nation
Right.
becomes the arsenal of democracy.
It's incredible.
Absolutely central to winning World War II.
Uh-huh.
So how did this dramatic shift happen in such a short time?
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing it using historian Craig Nelson's book, V for Victory.
Oh, a great book.
Now, before we get to that transformation,
Yeah.
we need to set the stage a little bit.
Okay.
You probably heard about the Great Depression,
Mm-hmm.
but it was so much more than just a dip in the stock market. I mean, this was a seismic event that really left its mark on a generation of Americans.
Nelson really brings this to life, I think.
Oh, yeah.
With some really vivid descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, imagine for a second a time when meals were primarily chipped beef.
Wow.
When you had, rickets was prevalent because of vitamin deficiencies.
Oh, wow.
And, extreme frugality.
Yeah.
It was just ingrained into society.
Right.
I mean, these were
like a necessity.
these were the realities for
Mhm.
so many Americans.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Right.
After enduring years of this hardship,
Yeah.
the last thing they want
Another war.
is another war.
No.
So it's understandable why isolationism was such a force
Mhm.
in American politics at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's really interesting is how President Franklin Delano Roosevelt
Right.
navigated this complex landscape.
Yeah.
Um,
He was
because he understood the anxiety of the people,
he was.
but also recognized the growing threat that was on the horizon.
He really was a master politician and
Right.
not a master communicator.
Yeah.
He seemed to really understand what people were going through.
Yeah.
And yet he also recognized
Yeah.
that there were these threats that were starting to emerge.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
He actually read Mein Kampf
Yeah.
in German, the uncensored version,
Uh-huh.
long before many world leaders really grasped the true danger
Yeah.
of Hitler's ideology.
So he was ahead of the game
He was.
in a way.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
He recognized that this was
Yeah.
a real
Right.
threat.
So while a lot of people were advocating for appeasement,
Mm-hmm.
FDR
Yeah,
is already thinking about
right.
war
Yeah, the possibility.
and how to prepare for that.
Yeah.
But how do you rally a nation
How do you?
that is exhausted and wary of conflict?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Um,
Well, this is where I think FDR's genius
Yeah.
really shines.
he didn't rely
Yeah.
on these traditional
Yeah.
methods of communication.
Right.
He went right to the people
Oh,
using a revolutionary new tool,
which was
the radio.
the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, his fireside chats, more than just speeches.
They were
So, like,
Yeah, they were a direct line
yeah.
into people's living rooms,
Uh,
creating a sense of intimacy,
yeah.
and and shared purpose.
And Nilsson actually tells a compelling story
He does.
about the banking crisis in 1933.
Oh, yeah.
So banks are collapsing,
Right.
panic is spreading,
It's a scary time.
and with one fireside chat,
Yeah.
FDR calms the nation and ends the crisis.
Wow.
So powerful.
It's amazing.
I mean, even today,
Mm.
in this world of instant information,
Yeah.
constant digital connection,
it's still
something
so important.
about that power of clear and effective communication.
Absolutely.
But communication alone.
Couldn't prepare America
No,
for a world war.
it couldn't.
And the U.S. military at that time,
Yeah,
to put it lightly,
not ready.
was not ready for prime time.
Not even close.
I mean, they were ranked 14th globally in size,
That's right.
somewhere between Portugal and Bulgaria.
Yeah. I mean,
They
unbelievable.
were using ice cream trucks
Right.
as stand-ins for tanks
You can imagine.
in their training exercises.
It's almost comical now.
Yeah, it sounds almost comical.
But it shows you just how big of a job
Yeah.
FDR had.
Yeah.
I mean, to take this nation that is so ill-prepared
Yeah.
and turn it into the arsenal of democracy
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And this wasn't just a last-minute reaction to Pearl Harbor.
No.
FDR had begun building up America's industrial capacity
Way before.
years before
Yeah.
the U.S. entered the war.
Absolutely.
That's remarkable foresight.
It is, yeah.
He understood that if war did come,
Mm-hmm.
America would need to be ready
They'd have to produce
to produce
at a scale they'd never seen before.
at an unprecedented scale.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Nelson really highlights
Yeah.
is how even like seemingly mundane materials
Right.
became so strategically vital.
Yeah.
Take aluminum, for example.
Yeah, aluminum's a great example.
The U.S. faced a critical shortage,
They did?
which impacted everything
Yeah.
from airplane production to
Just zippers.
zippers.
Zipper.
So something as simple as a zipper
Right.
could hold up the war effort.
It could.
It's amazing how these everyday objects
Yeah.
become critical in times of conflict.
They do. Yeah, it shows you how interconnected everything really is,
Yeah.
and how,
Yeah.
wartime needs can have these ripple effects throughout society in ways that you wouldn't expect.
That you don't really think about.
Yeah.
And it also
Like
showed
shows.
FDR's ability to see the bigger picture.
That's right.
He recognized the strategic importance of aluminum
Yeah.
and encouraged its production.
It did.
Even backing a businessman named Reynolds,
Yeah.
who challenged the existing monopoly
The monopoly.
held by Alcoa.
That's right.
So he wasn't afraid to shake things up,
He wasn't.
to disrupt industries,
Nope.
to achieve his goals.
To get what he needed.
Yeah, and it seems like his approach was really about finding the right tools and resources
Yeah.
wherever they came from.
Yeah.
But America's real ace in the hole was its mastery of mass production.
That's right.
And that came from Detroit,
Detroit.
which was like the Silicon Valley of its time.
The heart of the American auto industry.
All about efficiency and innovation.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're already experts
Yeah.
in creating complex machines
Right.
with assembly lines
Mhm.
and standardized parts.
Yeah.
And all that expertise proved invaluable
It did.
in shifting to wartime production.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Nelson describes this fascinating evolution of the assembly line process, drawing parallels to meatpacking
Right.
with its use of hooks for efficiency, Singer sewing machines,
Yeah.
standardized
Yeah.
parts,
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes-Benz,
Wow.
all these things
Yeah.
contributing to a system
Yeah.
that could just churn out war materials
Right.
faster than anyone had ever seen.
At an unbelievable rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like this perfect storm
It is.
of innovation and ingenuity.
Yeah.
And this assembly line technology that was born in Detroit
Mm-hmm.
became the backbone
It did.
of the arsenal of democracy.
That's right.
So can you give us an example
Sure.
of how impactful this was?
One striking example is the Ford Bomber Factory.
Okay.
Setting it up took almost 2 years.
Wow.
It was a massive
That's a huge
undertaking.
Yeah.
But once it was up and running,
Yeah.
it could produce an entire bomber every hour.
A bomber every hour.
Every hour.
That's incredible.
An entire bomber.
I mean, that level of output must have been mind-boggling at the time.
It would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a complex machine of war.
Yeah.
Rolling off the assembly line every hour.
Wow.
I mean, just amazing.
It seems like that scale of production
It was.
was really decisive
It was key.
in the Allied victory.
Absolutely.
I mean, the ability to just outproduce the enemy,
That's right.
flood the battlefields
Yeah.
with supplies and weapons.
It was a key factor
Yeah.
in turning the tide of the war.
So we have this nation
Yeah.
that is grappling with the aftermath of the Great Depression,
Right.
led by a president
Yeah.
who understands this looming threat of war.
Mm-hmm.
And he begins quietly
Yeah.
building up this nation's industrial might.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
how it all came together.
But I'm sure there were challenges
Oh,
along
absolutely.
the way.
The path to becoming the arsenal of democracy
Yeah,
was not a smooth one.
not at all.
There were internal divisions,
Right.
political battles,
Ah,
even tragic personal stories
wow.
that really shaped how things played out.
And we'll delve into some of those stories in the next part of our deep dive.
We will. So, we were talking about FDR's role in all this
Right.
in getting America ready for war.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to remember that not everyone agreed with him.
Oh, of course not.
In fact, one of the loudest voices against getting involved
Right.
belonged to a real American hero,
Mm-hmm.
Charles Lindbergh.
Lindbergh,
Yeah.
the aviator,
Yeah,
the first solo transatlantic flight.
that's right.
Wow, it's interesting how someone
It is.
so admired
Yeah.
could become so controversial.
Well, it really is.
Yeah.
It's a tragic story.
Yeah.
After he became famous,
Uh-huh.
he and his wife experienced a horrible personal tragedy,
Yeah.
the kidnapping and murder of their infant son.
Oh, wow.
And with all the media attention surrounding the case,
I bet.
Lindbergh became disillusioned with America
Right.
and sought refuge in Europe.
Yeah, you can imagine wanting to escape the spotlight.
Absolutely.
I mean, the press can be relentless.
But it was in Europe
Yeah.
that he started to become sympathetic to Nazi Germany.
Right. He was impressed by their technology.
He was, yeah.
And their, I guess, social order.
Right. He saw their advancements.
Yeah.
And was drawn to what seemed like a very ordered society.
Right.
But, he seemed to be blind to the really dark side
Yeah.
of Nazi ideology.
Yeah, he became a vocal advocate for isolationism,
He did.
saying that the U.S. should just stay out of Europe's conflicts.
It's interesting because you have this complex figure.
Lindbergh.
Yeah, Charles Lindbergh.
Yeah.
Going head to head with FDR.
And this was known as the Great Debate.
It was, yeah.
And it really was a reflection
It was
of what was going on in the country.
It was a microcosm
Yeah.
of the national conversation.
With Americans really torn
Yeah.
about their role in the world.
Right. On the one hand,
You have Lindbergh
appealing to this weariness.
appealing to caution,
Yeah.
warning against foreign entanglements and
Oh, right.
wars.
And on the other side, you have FDR saying,
Yeah, saying that America can't just sit back
right,
and watch while democracy
is under threat.
is under threat,
Yeah.
that they had an obligation
Yeah.
to confront tyranny.
This must have been a really tough time
I'm sure it was.
for Americans trying to figure out,
A very difficult time.
peace
Yeah.
versus this potential war.
Trying to reconcile those two things.
Right. So
Yeah.
what ultimately changed public opinion?
Well, I think part of it was that Lindbergh's
Hmm.
views became increasingly extreme,
Okay.
and his association with pro-Nazi groups
Yay.
alienated a lot of his supporters.
Okay.
At the same time,
Yeah.
FDR's skill as a communicator
Right.
really helped him to connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
with their anxieties,
Right.
with their aspirations.
Mhm.
And he knew that this wasn't just about military strategy.
Right.
It was about
It was about
winning hearts and minds.
exactly.
Uh-huh. And speaking of winning hearts and minds,
Yeah.
Nelson talks about another key figure,
Oh yeah.
a British ambassador named Lord Lothian,
Lord Lothian. Yeah.
who really helped secure American support for
I
Britain
did.
before Pearl Harbor.
It's a fascinating story.
It is. I mean, at first glance,
Yeah.
he seems like an unlikely diplomat.
He does.
He was, very posh,
Yeah.
almost a caricature.
Almost a caricature of the British aristocracy.
Yeah.
Not exactly someone you'd expect to connect
Right.
with everyday Americans.
So how did he win them over?
Well, he understood American culture
Okay.
and knew how to play to it.
Okay.
And like on his first day at the White House,
Uh-huh.
after he presented his credentials,
Right.
he went out to greet the press
Okay.
with a small black kitten
What?
sitting on his shoulder.
A kitten?
Yeah.
Seriously?
I know, right?
That's not exactly typical for a diplomat.
Not at all.
Oh.
But it was brilliant.
Oh,
It made headlines
wow.
all across the country,
Mm-hmm.
and it instantly humanized him.
Right.
It made him seem
Yeah.
approachable,
Yeah.
charming.
Not this stuffy British diplomat.
Exactly. He
Oh.
challenged that perception.
So he's a master of public relations.
Yeah, he knew how to use symbols and images to
Mhm.
create a good impression.
But beyond the kitten,
Right.
what was his main message?
Well, he understood
Yeah.
that he had to appeal to shared values.
Okay.
He talked about the common ideals
Mm-hmm.
of democracy and freedom
Yeah.
that united Britain and America.
Right.
He presented Britain as a valiant ally,
Yeah.
not some weakened nation
Right.
begging for help.
Standing up to tyranny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on their vulnerability,
Right.
he emphasized their courage and determination.
That would really connect with the American spirit.
Absolutely.
It's interesting how
Yeah, effective diplomacy.
it requires understanding the culture
It does.
and values.
You have to understand your audience.
Yeah.
And Lothian did.
Uh-huh.
He worked closely with Churchill and FDR,
Wow.
advised them on their speeches,
Yeah.
their correspondence,
Yeah.
really helped them to craft messages
That would resonate.
that would resonate with the American people.
It's amazing the influence that a single person
It is.
can have.
Yeah.
Especially when they understand politics
Yeah.
and human nature
Yeah, it's a real testament to
Yeah.
the power of diplomacy.
and the relationship.
Yeah, personal relationships, they
Yeah.
can really shape history.
It's also a reminder
Mhm.
that sometimes the most effective diplomats
Yeah.
are the ones who think outside the box,
That's right.
the ones who defy expectations.
Absolutely.
So we've been talking about all the political maneuvers
And diplomacy.
that led up to America's entry into the war.
Right.
But it's also important to consider the impact on American society itself.
It wasn't just a war fought on foreign battlefields.
Right, this transformed...
It transformed life at home.
Yeah.
In huge ways.
And one of the most notable changes
Yeah.
was the influx of women into the workforce.
Yeah, you think about that iconic image.
Rosie the Riveter.
Rosie the Riveter. Strong, determined woman.
Yeah.
Ready to build the weapons of war.
Yeah, it became a powerful symbol.
It did.
Of women's contribution.
It was a real departure from traditional gender roles.
With millions of men away fighting.
Yeah.
Women stepped into these jobs.
Yeah, that
had always been considered men's work.
Right, exactly.
Factories, shipyards.
Yeah.
Even construction sites.
Construction sites, all of it.
This must have been challenging.
Oh, I'm sure.
But also empowering.
I think it was both.
Yeah.
I mean, for many women. Yeah.
This was their first experience with financial independence. You know, they were contributing.
Yeah.
To something bigger than themselves.
And proving they could handle it.
And they did.
Yeah.
They proved they could handle demanding jobs.
Yeah.
That they were essential.
This experience really had a lasting impact.
It did.
It challenged those long-held assumptions about women's capabilities. Yeah. And, I mean, it paved the way.
It did, yeah.
For the women's rights movement of the 60s and beyond.
World War II was a turning point for women in America.
It opened up new opportunities.
Yeah.
New possibilities.
Yeah. It showed their strength.
Yeah.
Their resilience.
And that they were essential.
Yeah.
To shaping the nation's future.
Absolutely.
But the war's impact wasn't limited to gender roles.
No, it also had a big effect on African Americans and their fight for civil rights.
Yeah, this is a complex story.
It is.
Full of both progress and contradictions.
Right. On the one hand, African Americans served in the military.
Yeah, in greater numbers than ever before. Yeah. Showing their patriotism, willingness to fight for their country.
But they still faced discrimination.
They did.
And segregation.
Yeah.
Even within the military.
Even in the military. I mean, Black soldiers.
Often relegated to support roles.
Right.
Denied opportunities.
To see combat.
For combat.
To be in leadership positions.
Yeah, it was a reminder.
Yeah.
That the fight for equality was far from over.
It's a tragic irony.
It is.
That while fighting against tyranny abroad, they're still fighting prejudice
and inequality
at home.
Yeah.
And that hypocrisy really fueled this.
It fueled a sense of injustice.
Right.
A determination to fight for their rights.
Yeah.
You know, many Black veterans came home.
Yeah.
Determined to challenge Jim Crow laws.
Yeah.
And fight for the freedoms that they had just defended.
Right. Exactly.
So the war didn't end segregation or prejudice.
No.
But it did create a climate.
It did.
Where the civil rights movement would become more powerful.
It set the stage for the movement.
And more successful.
Yeah, the war experience became a catalyst for social change.
Yeah, it raised awareness of the
racial injustices.
Yeah.
And it inspired a new generation of activists.
Yeah.
To fight for equality.
So it's all connected.
Yeah, the fight for civil rights. It wasn't a separate thing. It was tied to World War II.
It seems like World War II was a turning point in so many ways.
It was.
Not just militarily, but socially, culturally.
Absolutely.
It set the stage for these major shifts in gender roles, the fight for racial equality.
Yeah.
It's clear this period had a lasting legacy.
It did.
It shaped the course.
Shaped the 20th century.
Of the 20th century.
And beyond.
And one of the most interesting arguments that Nelson makes is that FDR's leadership during this era was just as revolutionary as the founding of America.
As revolutionary as the Civil War.
Or the Civil War.
That's right.
I mean, he says that FDR fundamentally reshaped the country.
Reshaped the country.
Its role in the world, its industrial capacity.
Its social fabric.
That's a big claim.
It is.
It wasn't just about winning a war.
No, it was about transforming America's identity, its place in the world.
So before the war, we were isolationist.
Largely isolationist.
Hesitant to get involved in things.
But after the war, the U.S. emerged as a global superpower.
Right.
Deeply engaged in international affairs.
Wow.
Committed to shaping the world.
So the seeds of America's post-war dominants were planted during these turbulent years.
Yeah, I think you could say that.
Of the Great Depression and World War II.
It was a time of immense challenges.
It was.
Yeah.
But also
a time of incredible innovation, social change, and a transformation of America.
Of America's identity.
Its place in the world.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm just struck by the scale of this.
It's amazing.
And the complexity.
The complexity of this period.
Yeah, history is not just dates and battles.
It's not, no.
It's about
the connection.
Yeah, economics, the economics, the culture.
The culture, how it all comes together, and, the impact of individual lives on the course of events.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
And, as we explore in the final part of our deep dive, the lessons of this era still resonate today.
They do.
Offering really valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, the challenges
facing our world in the 21st century.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to think about how relevant all of this is.
Oh, yeah.
To what we're dealing with today.
I think it's really striking how this period offers us a way to look at our present situation. We've got...
we're facing
daunting problems.
Daunting global issues.
Climate change.
Yeah.
Political polarization.
Economic uncertainty.
Yeah, and these require us to really, rethink old solutions and come up with new ways of thinking and acting.
It's interesting that both the 1930s and today are marked by this feeling.
This feeling of crisis. Yeah. Like the old ways.
Of crisis.
Aren't working.
Like the old ways of doing things don't work anymore.
Right.
Back then it was the Depression that shattered everything.
Broke the status quo.
Yeah. And today, it's a whole bunch of factors.
It's a combination of things
that are forcing us to confront these issues.
Yeah, forcing us to deal with.
We can't just ignore.
Yeah.
The systemic issues.
That can't be ignored.
Just as FDR's New Deal was a radical departure.
Yeah, it was.
It was a response to the Depression.
Yeah.
We need that.
We need
bold solutions.
Bold and innovative approaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a fundamental shift in mindset.
Right. A willingness to challenge assumptions.
Yeah.
Consider solutions that
might have seemed crazy a few years ago.
Right, that we wouldn't have even thought of before.
So what are some specific areas where we can draw parallels between then and now?
Yeah, areas where we can see these connections.
Yeah, one key area.
Yeah, one key area
is the importance of
investing
in innovation and research. Yeah, look at World War II.
Yeah.
The U.S. put so much into developing new technologies.
Right, radar.
Yeah. Penicillin. Even the atomic bomb. And those investments.
Yeah.
Obviously, they helped win the war.
Right.
But they also laid the foundation.
For the future.
For decades.
Yeah.
Of scientific progress.
Yeah, it's amazing how those wartime investments ended up being investments in the future.
Right. They shaped the world we live in today.
Are there any opportunities?
I think there are.
For that today?
Yeah. I think as we look at climate change, it's clear that we need to put resources into renewable energy. Sustainable agriculture.
Yeah.
New technologies that can build a better future.
A more resilient future.
Yeah, a more resilient, equitable future.
Yeah, it's almost like we need that same kind of mobilization.
A mobilization of resources.
That we saw in World War II.
Yeah, and ingenuity.
But instead of for the war effort.
Right.
It's for
the planet.
For the planet, yeah. Another parallel.
Yeah.
Is unity.
And
shared purpose.
Yeah. Yet,
American
came together during World War II.
Yeah.
To defeat a common enemy.
They recognized that the stakes were too high.
They had to put aside their differences.
Yeah. Internal differences couldn't stand in the way.
And we may not be facing
like
a traditional enemy.
Yeah. A traditional enemy.
Today.
Right.
But we do have these challenges that demand that same level.
The same level of cooperation. Yeah.
Climate change is a global threat.
Yeah.
It transcends borders.
It requires a global response.
Yeah, it requires a coordinated response.
Or global response.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we're all in this together.
Good together.
Yeah, we can't let politics.
We can't let those things get in the way.
National self-interest.
Yeah.
Get in the way.
Of doing what needs to be done.
Of taking action.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that sometimes we do need to put our differences aside.
Yeah.
And focus on that.
On the greater good.
Yeah, on the greater good.
And just as Americans, found ways to do that during the war.
Right. Through sacrifice.
Through shared sacrifice.
Yeah.
Through
wartime production.
The collective effort of wartime production.
Yeah.
We need to find ways.
You have to find ways
to do that today.
To do that today, yeah.
Yeah.
It's this call to action.
It is.
Not just for the government.
Yeah. Not just for
institutions, but for us.
Leaders and institutions.
For individuals.
But for everyday people.
Everyday people.
Yeah, for all of us.
Yeah, and it's recognizing that we all have a role
to play.
That we all have a part to play.
Yeah, during World War II.
Yeah.
Americans.
They made sacrifices.
Yeah.
Rationing food.
Planting victory gardens.
Buying
war bonds. And all those individual actions.
Yeah.
Added up.
They all added up.
To this collective.
Yeah, to a collective effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while the specifics might be different today.
Yeah.
I think that same spirit.
The same spirit.
Yeah, the same spirit.
Of individual responsibility. And collective action. Is essential.
Absolutely essential.
Today, it's about recognizing that we're all part of something bigger.
Yeah, we're part of something bigger.
Than ourselves.
And
that our actions.
No
matter how small.
Can make a difference.
A ripple effect.
Can have a ripple effect.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's the biggest lesson.
That's the most enduring lesson.
Of this era.
Of the World War II era.
Yeah, it's a reminder of the power of human resilience. The capacity for change.
Our capacity for innovation and change.
Yeah, and the importance of working together.
Yeah.
To build a better world.
And build a world that's worthy.
Yeah, a world worthy of the sacrifices.
Some of the sacrifices.
Made by those who came before us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into this incredible period.
Yeah.
I'm left with this sense of awe and responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Awe at the challenges that were overcome, the transformation the nation underwent, and responsibility to apply these lessons to today.
Yeah, I agree.
History
can be a powerful guide.
It really can.
It can give us insights, inspiration.
Yeah.
As we try to figure out.
To navigate today's world.
Yeah. The complexities.
It's up to us.
It is.
To learn.
Learn from the past.
Embrace the possibilities of the future.
Yeah, embrace the possibilities.
And work together. To build a better world.
Yeah, to create a world that honors the sacrifices and the aspirations
of those who came before us. And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive.
It's been great.
Thanks for joining us.
Talking about this.
Be sure to subscribe.
Yeah.
And stay tuned.
For
more deep dives.
Yeah, we'll have.
More deep dives into
fascinating topics.
Thought-provoking topics.
Yeah, thought-provoking topics.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
And keep asking questions.
And keep asking questions.
That's by